I know. What's up, everyone? What's up? What's up? And welcome to Let's Chat with Rodney. And I have one of my favorite podcasters on here called Minority Report. So Auntie Carell, Auntie DeWan, and Auntie Jarrell. So tell the good people about what is the Minority Report. What makes y'all so different and so special being a podcast?
You know, it's us, honestly, at the end of the day. But the foundation of it is going the polar spectrum of being gay Black men, and specifically just like men of color within the LGBTQIA plus community. We felt that a lot of times, if there was a podcast or if there was a show or anything like that, that they were showing very siloed, a very monolithic vantage point of who we truly are. Yes, we could be fabulous. Yes, we could be lit, but also there's a lot of issues and topics that we really wanted to pinpoint that affect our community day in, day out. So that's the foundation of it. So of course we talk about, Beyonce and Janet and things like that. But obviously the last year with Black Lives Matter and just everything administration, honestly, it gave us a lot of stuff to really dive into and make sure that our voice from our community was heard.
Boom.
Okay, Auntie Jarrell, how do you? He not real.
Honestly, like the podcast has been such a freeing platform, for me personally, and I'm sure the aunties can relate too. I mean, and how we came to be is just literally just tagging each other on Facebook and IG and, everything funny or political or sports, whatever the case is. And it was just like, why don't we start doing this? And it really just became a place where the three of us can get together and we can kiki and talk just like we would without the microphone and without, the camera and stuff like this. What you hear and see on the podcast on YouTube and Spotify, wherever you stream, is literally what you see who we are when everything's gone. So 95% of the time we have a podcast before we even record the podcast because we got so much to say. So it's been great. I live for it. It's been my therapy, and I'm so grateful for my sisters up here who just keep me grounded and rooted and just together, because I could be a lot.
We love you, dude.
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, we have real ass conversations. There's a lot of podcasts out there. And frankly, there are a lot of podcasts that feature, young, gay, Black men. But I think what we bring to the table is a real sense of authenticity. We all have very unique perspectives. We recognize that we're not monolithic. And so we bring that to our podcast. We're very community oriented. We try to involve our listeners as much as possible. We have a segment called Ask Your Aunties where we, give people the opportunity to ask us a question, ask for advice, and we provide, our best advice. And, it's not to say that, we're the end all be all from the gay experience, but I think what people really appreciate about our podcast is that we keep it real. Just like Carell said, we'll talk about, the Janets and the Black Lives Matter and what's happening in political space. But then also, like Jarrell said, we'll talk about, things that are affecting us mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, financially. And when we are not an expert, we bring people like you onto our podcast, to share a different spectrum of the queer community. And I think people really respond to that. So, and it keeps us out of trouble because we can get in trouble by ourselves on the podcast.
Right. Ain't that right?
Yeah. Council Coastline came after y'all, council love trying to cancel people. And I haven't had a time, but I say,
we be ducking and weaving.
Right. You can't hate on us for too long. We too damn lovable though.
Yeah, I love y'all. One thing I can say, I love y'all podcast. It's very different. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm a podcaster person listener. And I love the fact that I can tune into you guys. And yeah, I get the candidness, but I also get the seriousness. I love the fact you guys keep current with what's going on in the news, Like if I don't watch the news today, I feel like I can turn onto your Instagram and be like, oh, what's going on? Okay, noted. But now,
we try to be curved. We try to be up on it.
y'all do a wonderful job today, like for real. So what is with why do y'all say auntie Carell? Why not Uncle Carell?
Well, we love a good T pun. That's really where it stems from. But just even in like at least from my perspective, in the Black culture, you like your aunties and things like that. And within gay culture, you might, hey sis, hey girl, whatever. And so just a play on that as well. So, we're pretty open. Yes, our pronouns may be he, him for the majority, but we're not afraid to be called girl or auntie and this and that. So, it's the fluidity of the situation. But ultimately, we love a good T-pun.
And I think that's a good thing of being gay. You know who you are. You can say sis, she, whatever. It doesn't affect you because you know who you are. You're not less masculine because somebody say auntie versus uncle. You know what you do in the bedroom. Hell, I'm not there. But you know what you do.
That part is like there's no the toxic masculinity.
That's what I do.
Rid of all that.
Exactly. But I do have a question. So what do y'all expect y'all podcast get so big as it did? It go so far as when y'all first started off. Did y'all imagine all of this to be when y'all first started?
I mean, honestly, I forget people listen to us. Like I have to until I go back and I listen on Monday when we release the episode. So because I'd be forgetting. Once we done recording, I'll be like, what did we talk about? And then I hear it on Monday when the episode come out and I'll be like, ooh, oh, I said that? Okay, I probably said a little too much. But I mean, honestly, I'm just here just because that's what my spirit calls to do. And I love being with my aunties. And it's just a great way just to, especially during this pandemic, to stay leveled and grounded and like have some sense of normalcy, So for me, I mean, I'm good either way, Now, if it happens to continue to go up, hey, amen, won't he do it? God's good. But, I'm just here just to be with one of my two best people in my life. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I mean, you always hope it's successful at the end of the day, like, because at the end of the day, it is work, and that's a lot of things maybe people don't realize whenever you're putting on a podcast or a show like yours and things like that, that it's time up from your family, it's time from your friends and things like that. So ultimately, you hope that it does well, and you hope that you can provide a different voice and things like that. But they have people like reach out and ask questions and literally comment and DM us like they genuinely know us because we probably share too much. It's interesting because you're just like, man, I'm just literally trying to be as authentic as possible, and that is resonating is incredible. And like you said earlier, so far they haven't canceled us or anything like that. So yeah, so like it's always a goal, but at the end of the day, you just want to be as authentic and provide enough value for those listening at the end of the day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When we started, we spent a lot of time planning this. I know a lot of people will just pick up the mic, especially if it's just one person. They'll just pick up the mic and, just start recording and put their content out there. I know a lot of other kind of podcasts are much more highly produced and, have a whole lot of other bells and whistles. But when we started, it was on a wig, hair, and a prayer. we were obviously thoughtful about what we wanted our format to be. I think we wanted to be a values first kind of podcast and really speak our truth and try to be, as we've talked about, as authentic as we can be, but really create a safe place where people feel like, damn, these people act and talk and sound just like my friends. Like, we hope that every day when somebody's listening to our podcast, that they're really just feeling like, oh, damn, I'm at the kitchen table with my aunties, with my, with my friends, with my, with my booze, with my homeboys and all that, because that's the kind of vibe that we have when we're creating the podcast for people to listen to. And we just, whether it whether it continues to explode or if it just, stays where it is. We've got, I don't know. That's a little taste. But, no matter where it goes, I think, whatever you do, I think we're just living by the model that you just have to put your whole heart into it. I mean, Rodney, you know what that's like.
Oh, do I know? But do I miss the studio and I have to deal with all this? Yes. So, some things are in the work though, but hey, God is good. But I do have a question for you all. So when you talk about not being monolithic and not being like a place where when people tune into you guys, they be like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm sitting down. Why is that important to highlight that for the LGBT plus community?
Oh man, where do you even start on that one? Just because I feel at the end of the day, you want to show that our community is whatever quote unquote normal or even abnormal, whatever it is. But like, I feel like for so long, there was this narrative of how we were supposed to act, how we were supposed to sound, how we were supposed to be like, oh, you're not gay enough, or you're too gay, or you're black enough, or you're too black. And it's just like, get rid of all that. Get rid of all the toxic masculinity. Just get rid of the rules and just be. And once you start being, that's when you start attracting the people that you want in your life. That's when you become a little more successful. That's what, and so that's ultimately what we want it to be, is just like, okay, if you're quote unquote more femme, be more femme. If you're quote unquote more masculine, be more masculine. If you're somewhere in between, cool. Just simply be. And like for my case, it's just like I felt like a lot of times being the PK of the group, that there's even like this narrative of that, and it's just like, no, yes, I could be spiritual, I could do this and that, but still be within the gay community.
What's PK? You a preacher?
A preacher's kid. Preacher's kid. Yeah.
Every time she say it. So, that's why y'all saw a drink like this.
Right. But it's part of my identity. And it's just like, that's part of showing that part and saying that it's okay to come from that background. It's okay to come from wherever you're from. And that is not a one path to get to where you're at and being okay with yourself. It's a journey, honestly. We're all on different paths and journeys, but that's okay ultimately. And showing that.
I think the other thing of it is, we all grew up Black. We've had so many people tell us who we're supposed to be. And coming into our own as queer, gay, whatever you want to, identify as, coming to your own and accepting yourself for who you are is such a big thing. And I think as it relates to this podcast, one of the things that the three of us all agree on is that just be yourself, and we will celebrate and honor that. You don't have to be different. You don't have to talk different. You don't have to act different. You don't have to show up different. You just be yourself. And I think one of the things that really resonates with people that listen to us is that kind of message really comes through in our online content and what we post and how we celebrate and uplift everybody, no matter what your body type is, what your physical attributes are, what your beliefs are, beliefs to some degree, because there's some things that don't really work as Black people or gay people, but at the end of the day, I think there's enough messages out there on television and other podcasts and movies and in our personal lives and even professional lives that are trying to control who you are and how you're supposed to show up. And we just we create a space where people can just be, and we celebrate and honor that.
Yeah, and I agree. And like to add on to that, for me specifically, it's been nice just to be around other people, queer people of color. So much of the queer community is about whiteness. It's about, the standard is you got to be white this or white that or whatever you identify of. And it's just like, but that ain't me. I'm Black, And so like having that space where you can talk with other POC people who understand like that upbringing of like, what it felt like to go pick your Twitch outside, for your own spanking and stuff like that, like just some of those cultural hardships that you only get as a Black person or a person of color. It's just nice to have conversations with people who get that, because that plays in a part of how you think and who you are. So I honestly got tired of explaining that to white folks. It gets hard having those conversations and being like, oh, so you don't have that trauma to unpack while we have this conversation about other trauma? Oh,
that part.
Like, woo.
There are so many times, just cultural references. There are so many times when we're having a conversation and we'll be going down one path and we'll all be thinking the exact same thing, no matter what, even if our mind is in the gutter, we'll all be thinking the exact same thing. And then one of us will say it and then we'll just fall out laughing. There'll be other moments on our podcast gets real. We argue, we fight, we laugh all within 5 minutes. Like, it's real.
What is one of the most heated debates you guys ever had doing this podcast? Like, what subject made y'all be like, did you really just say that?
That's a good question.
Before you even say anything, though, let me just say this: these debates are over nothing.
True.
It's not. They're never over anything really consequential. So I'm just going to say
true. That is a very true
It always
statement.
has something to do with what someone else is doing, and we agree what they do. It ain't got nothing to do with us. It's always about somebody else. Like, oh, I agree with what she said, and she said what she said. Like, I'm fighting for somebody else. Like, what? Honestly, I don't even know.
I don't know what. That's a good question.
I'm trying to remember. Well, you two got into it the last time, and what was that about?
But that was after the podcast, wasn't it? So we started recording, and we still had an argument afterwards.
Don't bring it up.
Oh, I remember the last one was between me and Carell, and it was when we had guests on. It was Pelayo and Melissa from the Forbidden Fruit podcast, and I had said something about kind of the historical context of religion, and that's all it took. And then Carell jumped in on it. She said, "Well, I grew up in the church, so I like we never been to church at all." But then again, it literally lasted like.
And I honestly kind of forgot about it.
It's a revelation.
Right.
But you know what? I think the lesson in all of it is, I think what people appreciate is that even though they hear us kind of like getting into it for like a hot 5 seconds or whatever, literally 5 minutes later, there's no grudges. It's not like we're not personally attacking each other. I think we can have differences of opinion and communicate that passionately, which we sometimes do.
Who said that?
But we also ain't nobody thrown their computers yet.
Nah, not yet.
But we demonstrate what we preach. So when we talk about, like, when people ask us for, like, how, like, ask their questions for Ask Your Auntie, and we give them advice on having difficult conversations, we actually put into practice, like what we talk about. Yeah, you can be upset about something, but you use your words and talk it out. And, again, it's nothing that's ever too deep that it's like it's going to break up the relationship or the podcast, but we're real people. And I think people want to see a reflection of themselves and hear a reflection of themselves on podcasts and through social media.
Yeah, that's a real
friendship. Like you said it, Auntie. I have a question for you. Have y'all ever brought something for each of you guys? Have either one of you ever brought something so personal on the podcast that you wish you did not share?
Not me. I'll share everything.
I was about to say, at this point, I think I've grown to get more comfortable sharing. Like, because you forget, honestly. Like, even though we know, like, the formats of the podcast and everything, we got the lights going, the camera, blah, blah, blah. But once you're in it, it's so authentic that, like, just to remember, and you just almost vomit it out. And sometimes you're like, damn, I didn't know I was going to share all of that. But it's part of the conversation. So I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think there's one now that I look back there, I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have said that. I mean, because it's like sexual stuff, like, like it's a lot.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that I've shared that I didn't want to share. Like we said before, I mean, I got I've done other things in my life. The videos floating out there, so something's gonna pop up. It's gonna pop up when it pop up. At this point, I'm like, it is what it is.
You got only fans, Auntie Jarrell?
Look, my mama said, "What you do in the dark comes to the light."
On.
You know, what you do in the dark comes to the light. So, you know, at this point, what I've done in the past, I'm expecting it to still come to the light at some point. I might be 55 when it happens, but it's gonna happen when it happens.
I do feel
I
like
think everybody got a little
probably,
video out there back from the early 2000s. So don't feel bad. You're not the only one. I have
I got more.
Early 2000s?
The 2000s.
I'm like the one from yesterday.
Pre-pandemic?
Right.
Ooh, early 20s.
That's
Lord.
funny.
I love you guys in the section. So have y'all ever not? So what was the weirdest letter that you guys ever received? You like, oh, we can't read this on the podcast.
Those are the ones we gravitate towards.
That's what I'm going to say.
The messier
really?
ones
So
tend
y'all
to be the
everything's
better
past
ones.
the first off this? Oh,
Wait, say
I had to
wait,
turn
say that
out
again?
a couple on mine.
Oh, really?
I said I turned out a couple on mine. I was like, ooh, can't share this. No, I had a real one that's talking about that they were thinking about killing their parents, and I was like, no,
Oh,
I'm
damn.
not going to read
No,
this.
we haven't had that.
I just gave them a hotline. You need to talk. You need a therapist. I'm not a therapist. You need a therapist. Let me refer you to my therapist. No, so y'all never had a weird letter like that? Well, that's good.
I mean, we get some great questions. I would say, like, we got a lot there for a while. A lot of just like, I don't even say his name hardly ever, but oh boy, Donald Trump questions. So like, how to handle a family member that voted for Donald and things like that. So for a while there, we were getting a bunch of those where we were like, okay, we're just going to utilize this one or two questions, and this is just going to encompass all of them. Because after all, you don't want to talk about old boy. You don't want to put that much energy into him. So that would probably be the only time that we're like, oh, do we want to do another Donald Trump question? Yeah. But other than that, we read what they send us.
I mean, it's their business. It's their business. If they want to put out there, we're just a vessel, okay? Like, here you go. Like, you gave us
Here's your
permission.
answer.
Come on, Sister Mary Clarence.
Right. That's
We're just
funny.
the vessel who reads your
Okay.
Right.
But I have
we get a lot of relationship questions, a lot of sex questions, well, not as much sex, but like a lot of relationship questions, and some that involve sex, but not really. Like we like the sex questions. So if anybody y'all listening, y'all got some questions for us, come on, hit us up. but that's
AY at MINORITEAREPORT.com.
So I have a question for you guys. So who was your number one guest you guys have not interviewed where you feel like, damn, we made it for each one of you?
Oh, damn, we made it.
Just give
That's a good question.
I personally feel that we're still climbing. So I absolutely adore and appreciate every single guest that we've had on. You know, we've been lucky that we've had some, you know, pretty popular people in the queer community. But I think also, you know, because we're very intentional about really bringing in people who can speak to our day-to-day lives versus, because again, there's a lot of podcasts that are out there that are bringing in like a lot of really like amazing celebrities. And we're not there yet. Plus also we're not that kind of podcast, if you know what I mean. Like we're more about like, how do you live your best life? You know, and you don't get that from somebody who has a lifestyle that is not attainable by you. You know what I mean?
But I say if you want to come on, no.
Serena Williams, we got a spot for you.
I'm like, you run the people away. You run the people
not
away.
At all.
No, they
not
can
at
come
all.
on.
Look, keeping it real. Like truly keeping it real. Like we would love to have, you know, obviously as we continue to, you know, to grow our fan base and continue to engage and whatnot, we would love to have, you know, more just more celebrities on. But, you know, as we're on this journey, I can't pinpoint somebody personally, and I'd be curious to see what the aunties have to say, but I can't pinpoint somebody that was like a signifier of like, oh, we made it. Cause I still feel like we have so much more to go.
I agree.
I
would say
so good though. I don't
appreciate that, boo.
I appreciate it. For real, though. That's real.
I would say like the one thing that I didn't foresee is becoming, maybe not friends is the word, but at least acquaintances or camaraderie with a lot of other either podcasts or the guests that came on. Like that's the part I didn't foresee, that I was just like, oh wow, like I'm still like chatting with them or this and that. So that's probably the part more than anything of saying, oh, I made it. It's more just like, oh wow, I've grown my friend group. I've grown people that I could go to and ask questions that I just don't know the answer to and things like that. So that's probably the more biggest thing for me personally, is just like, wow, as we've had guests on, being able to stay in contact with them. Like even like you, Rodney, like having you on and then like coming on here now. And once Miss Rona stopped acting a fool, like go grab a drink with you and things like that. So like that's the part that I probably didn't foresee. It's right. Hey, bunch of Henrys, exactly. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everyone too. You know, like I mean, because we also care about true representation. I feel like I don't think I will feel like we necessarily made it, because we are trying to have a space for everybody. So for the indigenous community, to the Latin community, you know, to the Asian community, Pacific Islander, Blacks, you know, like all of it. Like we want to have a true POC perspective, and there's not like a one guest that's going to represent all the communities. So it's going to be like a plethora of guests that's going to have to happen to make me feel like we made it.
I do remember one moment though, like that I felt like we really were like vulnerable, was when a lot of the Black Lives Matter was happening and George Floyd had just died, and like Jarrell and I are like breaking down literally on the podcast. It was with Priya. Pri. Why do I always want to say Priya? That moment probably to me was probably like a moment where I was like, wow, we really are putting our lives and our emotions and our feelings out there. Because like I remember just that episode, and it was during Pride Month last year. So if you're trying to go back, I think it was Auntie, what was her auntie name? Bullet, maybe. But just being that vulnerable, I didn't foresee, you know, a little whiskey there, but I didn't foresee us being that raw and vulnerable on an episode and literally breaking down like that. Like, just because it was just so much going on. And there was just like so much even in my personal life at that time too, that was just going on, that like, I was like, I am on this as boom right now. Like, that's not what I want to do. But again, you're just so in the moment, and then having guests on that allow you to be that vulnerable is amazing. So
when Dominique from Pose followed us, though, I ain't gonna lie, I do remember that day and being hyped. When she followed us, I'm like, oh shit, bitch! Oh, Mother Electra! Oh,
right. Yeah, Jen just shared something this week, and I was like, what the hell?
I seen that.
So there's moments. You're right, Terrell. Yeah. There are moments where you're
there
like,
are some moments you're like, ooh, oh, they see who, me? Look, me, girl. Say less. Wow.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, that's so funny. But unfortunately, we have to come to the end, you guys. And I have so many more questions. You guys will be back on the next one I cannot talk about, but I have got picked up.
Hey.
Congrats.
Yes.
That is good. Let me see. I hope it don't blow y'all out. Okay, great. So this section is called a guest spotlight, where you guys plug in what you got going on, where people can follow you and just plug yourself in.
Yeah, you can follow us on social media. IG, we're at Minority Report. They're like you're sipping tea. Follow us on YouTube. Like, you get to see each episode. You get to see our how animated we are. Like, we talk with our hands, we kick in it, we're singing it and things like that. So subscribe on YouTube at Minority Report. We have a couple awesome guests coming up as well. New episodes every Monday, wherever you listen to podcasts and YouTube. So yeah, find us. We're out there. Hit us up in the DM. Send us Ask Your Auntie questions, all that. So we enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you guys so much for coming on. This has been really, really fun. I hate that we are, have to come to an end, but we were talking game,
Yeah.
Y'all good people.
We'll be back anytime.
Anytime.
Ain't welcome back. But y'all welcome.
Look, I'm hoping we can do this like in real, because like this like social distancing / I mean, we're all three in totally different parts of the country. I'm in New York, Carell's in Atlanta, Jarrell's in Seattle. So like we just can't wait to like do a tour de force and go, like visit all of our friends in different cities and then come together and just like spend time in person with people. So, but yeah,
So
you want us back, we'll be back.
Yes, more than likely, we'll have a budget, so
Oh,
now we'll be flying Spirit, but that's another.
Hey, look, I'll sit there like this. I'll be on my way down. Look, I don't need no elbow room.
I don't know. I might book myself. I don't know.
Sit me down, please.
Luckily, I'm already in Atlanta, so I'll just show up.
You can keep them $20. I'll catch my own flight.
You want a sprinter? You want a sprinter? I don't sprinter. But until next time, you guys, this is out with Let's Chat with Rodney. Make sure you guys please follow and support the Minority Report podcast. Okay, they are good people. It's a good listen. I'm a podcast advocate. I love good podcasts, and we're not sharing no mess. Okay. These are one of the top 10 podcasts I listen to as of right now.
Aww.
So, just support them, follow them, get to know them. If you want the good news, the good tea, you get it all. I feel like it's like an MTV with CNN. You get everything you need. You need, get a good old shade room as well. So, please
we do have our moments.
Next time, yes, you do. Yeah, but so next time, you guys be blessed, be great, and see you next week.
Take care.